Ask the... Can't argue with that song, can we? Okay, the national anthem, if we can quiet it down. All right. Now we want to go back on the recording if we can get this very eager group of singers off our back. This is the recording, and Casimir Alexander. No more. Hold on. Casimir Alexander was commenting on a couple of factors in bargaining. Al, let me ask you, when you mention the lack of militancy here, if you would mind characterizing these people. We know it's not a hostile characterization, just as objectively as you can. What you think has happened to them, what you mean by their lack of militancy, how realistic it is.
Militancy can cover a lot, but in terms of militancy, we're talking about union militancy.
Yeah.
And adherence to the principles and the ideas of the union movement. As our older people have left, I'm speaking of the people who were the fort or the strength of the union. As they have left, we find it difficult to interest the younger people in the principles of unionism and what they can accomplish. Put it in the vernacular, we worked, those of us who have been in the union movement for a long time, worked hard enough to where a lot of our people have gotten fat. And by that I mean their interest now lay not only in color television, but motorcycles and motorboats and mortgages and sometimes it appears that the bigger they are, the more they want of them.
Yeah.
But the sense of unity amongst our union people is lacking, in that generally there is a feeling that let George do it, or let the leadership take care of it. And since both go together, and leadership being only as good as its following, the following being only as strong as its leadership, it just goes to show that we sometimes have a leadership with no following. And if the following is weakened, then the leadership is weak. And that's what I meant by militancy, Mike.
Okay. Let me not try to take apart what you've said, but see if you want to amplify any parts of it. First, some of it is general, in the sense that the workers, as the wages have improved and their conditions, they've tended to not attend union meetings or give a damn really about the leadership. How much has the role of young and new people? Do you have a large number of young and new people that don't understand anything coming in? Or describe the aging process, if you will, of the workforce here.
Well, the workforce here generally now is established at somewhere under 35 years of age.
The average is?
The average is under 35 years of age.
That means there's a lot of young people.
There's a lot of young people in the basement. And this is a change that has taken place within the last 5 years, for example. And I find that those that are starting in, those that have a seniority in terms of 7, 8, 9, and 10 years.
You're speaking of guys with that much seniority?
Of guys with that much seniority, and of the people who came behind them, tend to have no idea as to how what they are getting has been gotten to.
The trade union tradition doesn't exist.
There's no trade union tradition. There's no idea that we had to strike for this, that we had to man picket lines. There's none of this. I would get the feeling that a young man who comes to work today for $4.95 an hour thinks that the company is.
What is that $4.95 rate? A face rate? They're making about that at the face?
Well, it's $4.63 right
But it goes up on the next stage of negotiation. In 74 early or when?
In 74.
Okay, it goes to 4.
In June of 74.
At the face, they'll be making that kind of money, but he doesn't know why he's making it.
I'm talking about maintenance people.
What's your? Do you agree with this, Jack?
Yeah,
your
it's pretty
observation
well.
of this?
Yeah,
These younger guys, are they the sons of Potashes, or are they totally new? Well, let's take another factor here that's a little different than the rest of the mining industry, or not Tucson or that area, but certainly coal. There is an ethnic, the the equal employment business has led to some serious changes in the workforce further, hasn't it?
In Carlsbad, yeah.
Yeah, well, now what does this mean? There were no blacks in the industry.
There were no blacks in the
when
industry
PCA
up until 1965, for example.
All right, now what is...
There are very, very few.
But of course the black
Mexican
percentage, let's take it first, in Carlsbad is extremely small, isn't it? What is
It's
it?
about 2%.
2%. And what is it? It's the same at the mines? roughly?
I would say roughly that it's meeting that quota of 2%.
Yeah.
Maybe perhaps a little bit higher.
Now let's take the Mexican-American.
Mexican-American comprise about 28 to 30%
of the
population.
population. Okay.
And only in recent years have we got to that point. So that
You're not even up to that yet at PCA.
I don't think that we're at 30%.
You may be at 15,
We may
20.
be at 20.
20.
But I don't think we're at 30 yet.
Okay. Now but they don't change anything, do they? Do they come in with a different degree of understanding?
No, they do not come in with it.
You mean years ago the labor movement would have said this is going to result in something,
Correct.
but it didn't turn out that way.
It didn't turn out that way. Of course, the fellow, the black or the Mexican-American who's coming in, his father did not work in the mining industry except in isolated cases, so he has no relevancy to the to the mines.
And again, he's not grateful to the union for any of
He's not
this. This
grateful to the
happened
union.
because of other things than
Correct.
his job. Right?
It's, 1964 is what he says.
Yeah,
That's
it's the
That's
Supreme
right.
Court
That's
decision,
Supreme
right?
Court
Yeah.
decision.
He's grateful to the Supreme Court, not to the union for any of this.
Also-
What about? Let's take you're in you're in the white collar and supervisory group, Don. Do you see is the company hiring policies equally reflected there in an effort to get a balance, or do you see any changes?
They're trying. There hasn't been too many openings, and
No turnover to speak of.
not much turnover like there is in the other.
But do you have any Spanish speaking
we
in
have
white collar jobs?
some Spanish, but no color.
Right.
And the last few jobs that were filled were Spanish.
Right.
That
So the
was 'cause
company's
they had to
trying
meet a
to
quota.
conform to meet these quotas.
So they are.
Is this
having-
true at all the other mines, as far as you know?
Pretty much.
It's
so.
a fair effort to move in the direction
In
of
fact,
compliance.
fact, we've just
in
had
fact,
three.
right now we've got
And
some-
is there any reaction from, after all, this is a cowboy basin, right? I mean, in terms
Well,
of Texans,
you have your prejudices.
yeah. What's it like on the job then, in times? Do you have any, you were president of local for a number of years, Al, any incidents, or you?
There have been no incidents. It's been accepted.
It's the law, it's the law.
It's the law, and it's been accepted. There have been isolated cases of, have been getting rednecked about the situation.
How about in Carlsbad itself? Black men and Mexican men walk into any bar pretty freely?
Yes.
Can they move freely and buy and rent homes, or is there problems? At least they're not limited any
They're not
longer to the
limited.
black blocks
Correct.
that used to exist
And,
here 20 years ago.
Right. And movement has been made by the Mexican-American group, for example, who now live in
What, I
every-
worked
every
in
segment of
country
the
clubs. If
community.
they
Right.
want to buy a good home, they can do so in there.
And we've
Right.
had a small amount of integration back in the 50s, didn't we, Al, that didn't exist in some of the other
You were
cities
ahead
up in
of,
New Mexico.
you think
We were
Carlsbad
kinda-
was well
we were
ahead
kinda
of
ahead of the situation.
Yeah.
To a certain extent.
What accounts for that? Do you think that
Well,
this is
back
a
in
huge Democratic registration county, isn't it? In
Well, it is about
that's-
9-1, 8-1.
Democratic registration
Right.
there.
But there were
That didn't, but I'll bet it didn't go for Mr. McGovern in November then, or did it?
Well, of course, Mr. McGovern got 5,040 votes when the normal Democratic candidate would have got 9,000, 10,000, and as high as 11. So
But it was
uh,
carried by the Democrats?
But it was
But not for the presidency. in this
not
case.
for the presidency and not for a seat in the Senate.
Yeah. Oh, they lost the seat in the Senate here too. In this county? Well, this accounts for the Dominican,
Right.
if a Democratic county like this had delivered, it would not have been
Would
this
not have
close.
been this way. It would have been close.
What is this part of the mood when you spoke of black surveillance? Is that
I
part of
think
it?
I think it's
Or
part
is
of the
that
mood
something
today.
else?
I think
Yeah.
it's part of the mood today.
And what are the moods that you find with all the Watergate and all this stuff? Is there a change, or the national picture is affecting these guys?
It is affecting these guys. I can't find a guy who voted for Nixon anymore.
No more, huh?
Or if I find one, he says, I'm never going to vote for him again.
Oh, okay. It's affecting
Probably
the
won't have
guys.
the chance.
Yeah. This doesn't this this pattern, as I used to, I mean, it can it affects supervisors. I mean, it goes up and it moves outside of just pure labor ranks. Is that
Oh,
fair
it
to
moves,
say?
it moves through the entire.
It moves through the whole community. This sort of mood. The
there's
community
a
is a fluid one. Is that a fair
Right.
statement?
Right.
People
And
become
affects-
bosses and then bid back into the union unit.
Right, back into the union.
You have how many of those guys? You may have 5 or 10 of them around PCA.
Yeah, we got a few.
Then you have guys who have been union actives who move up into supervisory positions. So in this respect, it's not like the older coal mine situation, which was rigid, or say the old iron mines. You know what I mean? It was almost a European type tradition. If you didn't do it, you follow me. Here, it's not been that.
It's not that light.
No. How about the Finns? Are they about gone? And their
Yeah,
descendants?
I'm sorry to say they're about gone.
Are there any older pensioned Finns around here?
Yes.
Who are some of those?
One of my problems is always trying to remember what
Name,
their names
yeah.
were. But
That's why you didn't run for office, Al. You're just chairman of the Democratic Party. You
That's
don't have to
right.
know the names. You just know how many you got.
I have to know.
You
who
got
can
9 to
deliver-
1.
You know who can deliver the vote. That guy I know. But there, I'd say off the top of my
Yeah.
head that we have in the community a good 25, 30
Retired Finns.
retired Finlanders.
Because I'd like to talk. I tell you, some of
They're
those, I'd
70s
like to
and
take
80s.
them back to their youth. Some of them must have fascinating, if they're in their 80s, like iron mine experiences or Colorado labor war experiences, World War I, and then came down here, you know.
Came down here.
And it's a tight-knit community, isn't it, in terms of...
In terms of
don't they have sauna baths? I mean, they
the
established...
sauna baths, and they have some of the damnedest parties I've ever been to.
Tell us about a Finnish party.
Well, I can't tell you about it.
It said that. Okay. When you get invited to one, you're never to tell about it.
You know, don't tell about it, and you don't decline to go.
And you don't what?
You don't decline. You go.
Oh, you go when you're invited. Is there a Finnish wedding quite an affair?
I have never been to a Finnish wedding, but I understand the
Okay.
I've never been.
But a Finnish party is really something.
It's a party, and it's a good one. And, you know,
They pull the stops there.
a lot of friendliness.
What about social life here? How would you characterize it? Drinking?
Stratified, more or less, actually.
In what sense?
In terms of, in terms of socializing, there are probably, you guys put in three stratas here. One, you go to the country club. 2, you go to the Elks or the Moose. And 3, you're out to the rest of the places.
The bars?
The
The
bars.
bars.
The honky tonks.
There are a lot of honky-tonks and bars.
We have several, and
I'm
but that-
impressed with a lot of
sometimes,
them. Okay.
a lot of
The
times,
package store bar combination. is
package
common
store
here, too.
combination is quite a thing.
Yeah. And then an old buddy of some of you, A.J. Price, who held office and was in your mind with you, is presently a bar proprietor. So you got a lot of this kind of crossing over into the, if you want to call it middle class, which is probably not
Yeah,
a
he
fair
does. I think
characterization.
he does a good business with everybody.
Okay. What about that social life? Any other comments? Is drinking heavy here or normal? How do you, when you go to a copper mining, is it a little less than that?
It's a little less than a copper
Fist
mine
fighting?
town.
Around these honky tonks and bars?
Fist fighting.
More on a Texas tradition?
More in a
small
Texas tradition. You know, if you're big, you pick on the little guy.
thing? Is that the way it
If you're the
goes?
little guy, you think you can whip the big guy.
Ah, now you added the second.
It's not,
part.
you know, it's not a PCA versus national situation
Oh,
in terms
no.
of...
There's no clicking up by
no
companies,
clicking.
right? It's buddies.
No,
huh?
it's just, it's a buddy system. And,
Yeah.
1 or 2 guys will get out of each other.
What about church affiliations here? What do you...
Well, this town has 55 churches for a town population of 20,000.
Almost as many as the bars, would you say?
There's almost as many. Yeah, so church affiliation affects a good 50% of the people in this area.
Yeah. Well, I was very impressed with the fact that Ernest Gibbs probably did more to hold the Union together in an extremely tough period, you know, following
Very
the
tough
defeat of the strike where, you know, the Union was not respected even by its own members, and he was certainly a, you know, preacher Gibbs, right? He was a religious figure. It's essentially a Protestant, southwestern type tradition. Catholics, they're of course very big in the Spanish-speaking population, right? But minor factor amongst Anglos or not?
I would
I
say...
would say so, yeah.
And of course the blacks are
Minor
Protestant.
factor, yeah.
And then what do you have? Mormon? This is the, but
we have one
not
here.
as big as in Utah
No.
or Nevada. These
They're
are.
fairly active.
They're active.
Anything
Don
else?
could tell you.
And Don, what is the
I
general
don't know
size
how
of the
many.
Mormon?
Carlsbad has
Community.
about 300 members. Of course, they're not
If
all
you had to
active.
characterize them, would a substantial portion of those be Potashers? Or
No.
More ranchers or what?
Maybe 15%. Maybe.
Yeah, less than normal in the
There's
population.
several business
Yeah.
men. Of course, it's just like the Protestant. There's percentage business, percentage ranchers.
right.
Some ranchers, and it's a mixture.
Yeah, you don't have really the original Mormons in large numbers here who came from Nevada or Utah to settle here. They're a portion of them,
There's a few from,
but it isn't as if you're
No,
close
no.
to their territory where they were very big and prominent socially.
Like northern.
Well, yeah, you can run into mining towns like Ely, Nevada, where the average miner is, a Mormon, because they were taken from the native population. What about what these workers are like? You say they buy things, okay? You were describing that. Obviously, color TVs come in, all this kind of thing. What do they like about horsepower? I mean, they like motorcycles are a big thing, or what? How would you describe their interests? Take these guys under 35. Let's separate them from the older and then describe the interests.
Well, with the younger fellas, it's the motorcycle. It's the I don't want to say hot rod car because speaking technically in that nomenclature about automobiles, I'm not sure that I know what I'm talking about. But certainly lean toward the speedier automobile.
Yeah.
Or in fact, a lot of them soup them up.
Yeah.
Now,
would kids like that ride the Potash mine bus transportation system, or would they just scorn it almost that age group? For instance, there is a regular bus system, which would be the cheapest form, probably of transportation, right? But what does the average guy do? Would you characterize the age difference there?
I don't know. Do you ride the bus?
No, carpool.
I'm in a car.
I'm in a car.
Each of you are in carpools. Is that the commonest means of transportation?
I think it has been in the last few years, but I think it looks like Mr. Nixon's going to change that.
He may put the buses back in.
He may put the buses
back in.
If you're on, especially if they go for rationing, where you want to save your coupons for private driving, right? But when I was here, the Potash mine bus system was a fairly mass thing. Was I right? 20 years ago, if it wasn't half the guys, it was still a very big portion of them left every shift.
Well, I think
from
this
that bus
due
station.
so many carpools, Mike, is the distance that we have to go to work, and we could usually leave maybe 5, 10, 15 minutes later than buses, and you get home anywhere from 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes.
Well, if you add that up,
before the
then
bus
you're
is-
saving you're with your family for an additional 30 minutes on average, compared with the necessity the bus has of leaving at a common time. The buses do go to particular mines. Is that right? I mean, you get on a bus going to a particular mine, so you're not having to go into a mine and pull out and go to another one and all that. Do the companies subsidize that bus system?
Yes.
They'd have
Up
to
to a
keep it.
portion
Yeah,
of it.
okay.
Very
To make
small
sure,
percentage.
but it's a separate corporate entity. Is there anything else about the corporate structure here? They never had company housing. They never had company stores. You correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, no, they had company housing and they had company commissaries in the earliest days, up till 1946, 47, 48.
But the period you all were here,
Period where
you all were here, there was
no.
no sign.
It was,
So this would have been at a time when Carlsbad yet had not even developed a tourist financial base. I mean, the caverns had been discovered, the Juana out at there and all that, and the bats at the caves, but by 46, Carlsbad is enough of an entity, they'd leave it alone, right, to develop. And I assume they have an enormous political and economic influence on the community, the companies, but they don't operate like mining companies. They don't operate their own hospitals, their own doctors, their own stores, right? There's no direct control of the police. Maybe they don't have a very weak control of the police, and certainly they don't have control of the political system, do they?
They did not.
No? So that's a very big difference to Appalachia. What have you noticed you all noticed in company attitude changes over the years? Anything substantial in growing up, in maturing process? Just as you've been trying to objectively describe the change in the working force.
Yeah, I think there's been some change, Mike. I'm not sure that I can categorize it quickly. Essentially, of course, all of these minings developed from having people come to work for it from other mines, so that you had somewhat the old mining tradition in the community. That has changed somewhat. It's my appearance now that, it's my feeling now that as far as the companies are concerned, for example, if we sit down, it's not necessary to make the point in fact of what we'd like to get and what we need or what we should have in terms of what it was like in the old days.
Describe that a little more.
Well, I think today that that your labor leadership is a lot more enlightened. They probably know where to go after the facts a lot better. Know how to sift the facts. Know how to pinpoint a particular company, so that when they sit down, their feeling is not that of sitting down equals to equals as yet, but at least it's the feeling that knowledgeably we have some idea of where the company's at. That they
In turn, what has this meant in the company attitude?
This has meant, I think, a softening in a company's attitude.
They're not out to bust it.
They're not out to bust the union.
They live with it as an entity.
Right. They're not out to prove that we can, lord it over you or anything like that. But they're willing. That's not to say they can't get tough.
Yeah.
It's not to say that, because they can reach a certain point, and of course, as you know, we have to get to that point before we finally establish where we're going. But it seems to me like it's somewhat not easier, but more understandable that we're not going to have the company come in and say, this is it. There's no sense meeting tomorrow. We've done made an offer, make it over. It's more of the idea of some give and take, and with the idea they're not out to bust us.
All right, let me ask another thing. You've been in United Steelworkers of America how many years now?
Since 1971, wasn't it? January 71.
Okay.
Because
in other words, mine mill and steel merged around 67, but because you had taken the stone route, the merger wasn't until, say, 3 years ago or 2 years ago.
71.
Do you see any change in either your trade union mode of operation or the company attitude since they're dealing with steel? After all, it's one of the biggest international unions in the country. Do you see any change?
Not a great big deal of change. I think it was a little change at the bargaining table this last time, don't you guys?
Yeah.
What was the change?
Well, I think the change is one of awareness. That in terms of the company, that we're not dealing with a 10,000-man international.
Yeah, Stone was a joke. Really.
Well, it was a joke, frankly.
You had, what, 1/10 of the internationals or more of it?
We had at one time 1/10 of the entire international union in Carlsbad. The leadership had been entrenched in this union for so long that...
And they couldn't give you any good advice, really, could they?
We didn't have the facilities nor the money, frankly. So that
Do you call on the research department now of steel? Do you use it, or is it...
We use it.
Okay.
Yeah, we use
It's there, we use it.
But let me pose another way of looking at it and comment. Another side of that, which I might be wrong on, but is that there's a French saying, the more things change, the more they're the same. You also have carried with you through all of this almost the same, say, full-time personnel, whatever it is, business agent or international rep, so that the officers didn't change in the locals unless there was a local union revolution. So that in one way the companies felt secure that although a big international came in, it was almost the same. You know what I mean? You didn't get a new bargaining guy, did you?
No, we did not.
So your staff man continued to be the guy who had been here for many years.
Correct. So
I don't know what he was before Stone, but for some number of years he'd been here.
The company was dealing with the same local people.
Yeah. Both full-time staff and
full-time
local
staff
union
and local union officers.
Okay. Were you ever full-time staff yourself?
Yes.
At what period? As a local union president?
Well, I was a full-time local union president for
PCA,
4 years.
or was it a joint local?
It was amalgamated local.
PCA and which?
National and IMCC.
Yeah, you managed that in what period of time?
1962 to 1966.
Okay.
And
So actually, ever since the Gibbs period, you were the only other guy that ever had an amalgamated local and spoke full-time
Correct.
for them locally, elected by the miners locally. What caused that going their own ways again?
well, originally, we go back to the original split, and what was an amalgamated local was that we had the carving out of the skilled workers from the production workers, which is an old story, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have to get back to the old adage that some leadership would rather be a big fish in a small pond, and so that we had this kind of movement inside.
Inside it, you had local pulls,
people
provincial
who wanted
pulls.
to formulate their own local union within their given plant.
And they've ended up that way, haven't they?
They wound up that way.
Okay.
Much to
Give me a summary comment, your editorial comment on that. Is that good for them?
no, I think it's bad, Mike. I always have thought it's bad.
So you need an amalgamated
You need an
local.
amalgamated local because it goes back to the old adage that it's an old cliche, but it's still a truism. Unity, there is strength.
I agree, and yet I've always found it remarkable because while it's a good trade union principle, United Mine Workers all have separate work operations, local unions, most copper does, so that this was a unique history that you really want to preserve here. You did once have a wonderful amalgamated local here, and I'm not sure in my own mind,
In terms of having
benefit
amalgamated local, and the only two times we've had amalgamated locals, other than the principle of getting a contract, more work in terms of the community, in terms of benefits for the men, was accomplished within the amalgamated local than has been accomplished at any other time.
Okay.
And that I think is a show of what
That's good. Well, you answered.
Politically stronger.
Yeah.
We had a
What were you able to do politically, Jack? What types of?
Well,
You mean elect officers?
Let me tell you, you were with me one time that I remember up in the Eddie County Courthouse.
Well, I remember meeting with Senator Anderson.
And having a big fight in that courtroom as to who was going to be on the precinct committee.
Yeah.
And sitting in there one day was a guy by the name of Alexander, who later became the county chairman, so that we have come a long, long way from battling.
Well, I suppose I'm not being cynical. I'm simply saying without amalgamation, you've still come, some of these things have been achieved anyway. I can't make up my mind whether what happens is that Alexander matures and grows and becomes more capable. You know what I mean? Whether it isn't a combination of things that go into
I think it's a combination of things.
It's not
really.
a single,
it's a combination of things.
I agree with you, probably an amalgamated local is better, but
But
per
it's not-
se you
but
might
also-
have achieved.
Yeah, you might have, but also there's always, let me give you an insight.
Yeah.
This is off the record now.
Yeah.
I was approached, for example, by a political group in the city saying, look, we're going to run so-and-so for mayor. What do you people think about it? I said, well, I probably need a couple of weeks to find out. Already knew the answer at that moment, but you always give and take.
Yeah.
And so 2 weeks later, when I met with the people again, I simply told them, look, you run this guy for mayor, the fight's on. You raise your $35,000, and we'll raise our $3,500, and we got a battle. And
Isn't your 3,500 in that 9-1 worth that 35,000?
you better believe it.
Okay. If you could raise your 35,
if you raise $35,
if you raise $35, you're in a little trouble.
But the interesting thing was the guy, and I'm not talking about because because it was me, but actually what the guy said was, there was a time when you had an organization.
Yeah.
You don't have one now.
Right.
And looking straight in the eye, I said, fine, if that's what it takes in your mind to do this guy, that we have to have an organization, we'll go out and get one. But they knew when we once had that kind of an organization, that we could exert influence.
Well, were there not other changes here? Now, you're correct, but for instance, to my mind, one of the good forces here in the early years that disappeared was the Eddie County News. You remember, under Marcus Crippen. I think he was generally a progressive, or tried to be, right?
Tried to be.
Within his limits, huh?
Yeah.
What's his, according to his lights were dim now and then, but he tried, and he ran the county newspaper. To me, the press here, I don't know how you view it now, it hasn't changed a great deal. It was reactionary then, it essentially still is, or has it altered?
It's altered some.
That's what I don't
The
know.
reaction may still be there, but it's
More
usually
subtle.
quiet and more
Yeah.
subtle.
Used to be brutal, right?
Used to be
Yeah, it used to
brutal.
be
It was a
brutal,
company
that's right.
organ in that
Right.
They
left-hand
didn't pull
column,
any.
yeah.
They didn't pull any.
They didn't pull any punches, and
There is no company newspaper in that
There is
sense
no-
here now,
no.
right? Where's this hospital issue, Al? Maybe you want to comment on it. What's it all mean right now? Maybe you
Well,
could
I-
first
I'm-
describe it. What is
well,
going
the
on?
hospital
They want to
situation-
build a new
they
hospital.
want to build a new hospital.
For how much?
Basically, I forget how much.
The board of
$5
directors.
million?
For
I
$5
$5
million?
million?
Yeah, 5
All right,
million.
and this is the board of directors of the downtown and what do you call the other, North?
Northgate.
Those two combined institutions are one hospital? With one
one
board.
hospital, with one board.
They're not really a popular organization,
They're
are
not. They're elected by a minority of the community.
they? Yeah.
Uh,
Although they're the community hospital.
although it's a community hospital.
Is labor represented on the board? in any
Labor is
numbers?
represented by the end of the fact that it was not represented to begin with,
Yeah.
and it was finally decided that at least
They better,
token-wise we
yeah.
ought to,
So they-
so that we have a man on.
Out of how many?
Out of board.
20, I guess.
You get one man out of
15,
something?
isn't it?
15,
15.
okay.
One out of
15 on the
15.
board now?
Yeah.
Okay.
1 out of 15. The rest of them's made them retired doctors, and ministers.
And I think the potash companies would have one or two
Potash
members,
companies
yeah.
have somebody on there. The issue is that there are 2 hospitals, 2 operating, 2 of everything. And the question is whether if we want to buy an X-ray machine for $120,000, so we buy 2 of them when we
Yeah.
don't use one of them but 40%
Yeah,
of
right.
the time.
Yeah.
It's that kind of
Yeah.
is what's being looked at by the people in the
Yeah.
community. On the other hand, the people on the board are looking in terms of saying that, we have to build hospitals because we have to build hospitals. This one's already 10 years old or 12
Yeah.
years old. And
The North Gate.
the North
And
Gate.
the downtown
the
St. Francis is
it's
way
even
out of
older.
date, yeah.
It's even older, although it has a new, has a
It's been
somewhat new.
renovated, I assume.
It's
Okay.
been renovated.
And personally, I'd be in favor of a hospital, of a new hospital, but under a set of different circumstances that now exist,
Yeah.
insofar as healthcare is
All right.
concerned.
Then let me see if I want to, that's a fair summary. And right now there is a wing-ding of a fight going on, like between one guy on the medical staff and the rest of the doctors, and a good part of the community angry at the idea of proposing a hospital. Is that right? It's in a mess. Not a good way to raise money either.
Not a good way to raise money.
So that something's going to have to come out. Do you mean you'd like to use the leverage of this in order to maybe achieve a new board and a new corporate structure? Is that what you'd like to see happen?
Certainly, yes, certainly.
Maybe get the county or somebody to own the new one, and that way
Or
get
the
it
city.
into, or the city, and thereby get the public to have some say-so about their own
Right.
hospital. The only thing I'd warn you about is that I live in a community where there is a city-owned hospital, and you got to be awful sure that they don't do what ours did, which was to give it over to a self-perpetuating private board to operate, which operates a group of 7 country club people operate the city-owned hospital.
Well, this is a problem.
Yeah,
This is a problem here.
Right.
In terms on paper,
Yeah.
the board wants to give the hospital to the city, but have the city hand it back to the
That's
board.
right. Well, I better warn you. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a good phony thing, but in our board, there's no labor, there's no women, there's no working people, there's no black, there's no Jews, there's no Italian. I mean, they got everybody that's anybody barred, and the little clique of the country club run the thing. It's sad because a hospital is more and more on the public side. If we're going to pay a big part of the bill, we ought to have some say-so in it. You know? Even if you don't really have a lot of say-so, you at least trust a few of the 5, 6 board members, and you know they're not going to sell you out if they got to make money. What other issues do you see that are important to miners? Yeah, and I wish you'd go back on that age gap. What those younger guys are like. I may have interrupted you, and we've taken off on a few other subjects, and then you were going to contrast them. And maybe you have other views, Jack or Don. How do you see the older guys? Don's a little younger. Is that right? And you or not?
No, he's
About the same age? Okay. What then? You're all about the same age. And how many older guys are there? And what are they like? Are they trade union loyalists in a sense, or are they tired? Or what are they?
Well, they're tired.
They're tired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember, they've lost a big strike here. We haven't
They've lost
mentioned
two
it,
of
but
them, two of them.
they've lost 2 here.
The
Okay.
2 big ones.
That's hard on a bunch of guys.
They've been
to
very
not-
loyal. Many of them dedicated.
What
the
your
man-
first big strike was the 1949-50 strike, which was ended in a real disaster, right? Hundreds of guys blacklisted, or you might say out of work and lost their seniority. Huh? Then what was your next big loss?
1964.
62.
Was that an
62.
economic strike?
No.
What's the issue?
The issue was contracting out management rights, which were tremendous things,
Like what?
nationally and locally.
What do you mean?
Well,
Why was it so
a
important?
definition of what constituted management's rights.
Well, what jobs were you losing by such
Uh,
contact?
well, depending upon the language, probably maybe all of them.
Oh, it was a threat
Yeah.
of
It's a
vast
threat, yeah.
proportions, and yet you lost that one and they got their language?
We lost that one, and they wound up with their language.
How long were you out that time?
58 days.
So there were 2 long strikes here. As strikes go, not to win them. I mean, you know,
That's right.
General Motors out 100 days and you win them, then you can say, well, I didn't win back all the wages, but we won our point.
We haven't had a strike, in which we have struck and have been successful. We've had one-day stoppages.
Now, what about wildcats? You have them at PCA?
No, we've never had a wildcat.
Well, where
I
are
take
what
that
are
back.
these one-day stops? You mean they had contract time?
Well, no, the contract has run out.
Yeah.
We're negotiating.
Everybody got sick.
Oh, I see. The guys are like police
They had all-day
strikes
meeting.
calling you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
The
the-
union called it
Oh,
all-day
so that
meeting.
as part of contract endings and negotiations, you've now and then done one-day strikes. Huh? Now, the guys can tolerate this, and the leadership doesn't want to take them out for more than that, probably. Huh?
Probably.
In economic terms, they're a little more fearful of going out for anything.
All right.
What about these older guys? That part of what you meant by saying they're not militant, or were you referring to the younger guys?
No, I was mainly referring to the younger people.
Okay.
And
These guys would stay with you, the older ones.
Oh, yeah.
What's their age?
And,
Who are we
the younger
talking
ones?
about? No, is this
The older
over 35, this older group? Or you mean really, are they over 45 for the
They're
most
over
part?
45.
So you got like a 10-year gap in there, is that right? Almost no, there was a period because of the decline in the industry,
Right.
you don't have employees hardly between 35 and 45. So you only recently got the
There's a
young
big gap
ones,
in there,
right?
right.
Now this is much like the coal mines,
It
in
is.
which there's a double generation gap. In other words, you got an awful lot of guys over 50. Huge number of old Union loyalists under 50 and an awful lot under 30. And that under 30 is growing every day, don't know what the union's about right now.
So this is what's
Same
happening.
type of thing.
Same type of
Except the gap is worse because coal had a depression for one year.
Yeah.
So that you see the
Yeah.
gap is like 20, 25 years. You know.
Here it's
Not, yeah, you got a generation gap. They almost have what one management company, president of one company said, we almost got a double generation gap. It's almost, in some cases, like 20-year-old kids and 60-year-old, men working side by side. They don't really, they don't even see each other,
I work with a guy who's got a full set of hair, 2 beards. And,
2 beards and a full set of hair, okay.
Around. He's 20 years old.
Yeah, 20 years old, yeah. Now, what about this beard business? What are these young guys like? We haven't talked about that. What are they like in appearance? Do they use drugs?
No.
Any drug usage? This is very important. No drug usage on the job that you're
Well,
aware of.
what do you
Are they
you say
alcohol?
when you say
Well,
drugs?
I
what do you
mean,
marijuana or?
Well, you talk
hard
about it. What do you?
drugs?
Yeah, let's take hard. No hard drugs you're aware of.
Not.
All right.
I don't
Some of the
think so.
kids
Might-
are
yes.
small-time pot smokers. Really, it's not a big
Small
problem
time.
as you
Not a-
see
it's
any
not-
kind of drug.
The drug problem within
But-
the industry is not a big
See,
problem.
here's what you got. It's not a big problem, right? Drugs
in
are
the
not a
industry,
problem.
no.
It is in the auto industry, but it's not in this industry. Now, how that drinking? Are these guys turned off on drinking, or are they heavy drinkers? They more
Drinking, we have problems.
even at the young age. Is that right?
Yeah.
These are almost like their elders. They hunt, fish, eat,
Drink.
motorcycle, and drink like hell, and get in fights, I guess, at the bars and all that.
Now, the old man is just drinking nowadays.
He can't fight as much.
He can't find no the
Okay.
older ones.
Now, what about women? Any women miners?
We have, that I know of, 3 women working at the mines. We don't have any women miners.
Well,
We
I
have
understand there is some
in
Where?
mines.
Duval.
At Duval,
Right.
there's 3
Yeah.
underground.
3 underground.
now, what are they doing underground to do all this?
Hand
stuff?
muckers, I
They're
understand.
hand muckers. So that means they're shoveling,
She's just
right?
shoveling, yeah.
For the time being.
Well, where a hand in modern production terms, they're standing around where maybe the belt comes in and there's a dumping taking
Yeah.
place. I mean, where's hand muckers only at a place where 2 belts meet
That's
or what?
right.
That type of thing.
And it's spillage from the...
Yeah.
the-
So they're not only doing that; they probably got some other duties like cutting off the belt. Is that right? I mean, they may have some
They have other light
relationship to
duties.
light duties. Okay.
I'd say...
But they'd have to have strong shoulders, right? I mean, they'd
They
be
would.
expected to use
They-
to shovel if they don't. You do have women in the surface anywhere, or you don't have any at PCA at all? aside from
we
underground?
have 2 women on the surface at PCN,
What
the
do they do?
jurisdiction of the union. They work in the control lab.
They're working in the... Tell about them, Donald.
Well, they pick up loading samples each day.
They go
It's a
into
straight
them.
day job.
Where do they go to get the sample?
They go down to the loading dock at the loading stations they have.
And men used to hold these jobs.
No, in this particular case, it's always been men and women.
Oh, how long have women held?
Well, they've been in there
As long
since
as you've been with us?
Since the war.
since the war.
Since the war.
Mhm.
They started in the war and they stayed.
Started in the war. Some of them started there, still there.
Okay.
Uh,
How about in the non-union jurisdiction? Do you have any women?
we have some in the lab.
Yeah.
2 in the lab. They analyze the car samples that's brought up, plus some daily samples, refinery samples that are picked up each day by those lab women. And when I first started there, the control lab and all of the lab department totaled about 35 working people. Now I guess there's a total of 10. It's been cut back that much. And
How do you, where's the automation in the lab? How do they get rid of people in the
well, the
lab?
control lab used to have a total of, when I first started in '52, there was 4 on day shift usually doing pick up samples and running control lab for the control samples for the refinery. So they have completely did away with shift work in the control lab. Now they only have day shift work. And the control lab is only 2 hours a day usually work done in that. And the rest has been cut out. Then also on some of the other jobs where they had 3 and 4, they have cut down some of the work. Not as many samples, cut out some of the samples. And
They have an automatic system of analyzing that, pouring out.
they do have automatic machines around the plant now that runs the analysis which the control lab used to run. It's
more or less automated then.
yeah, and they still have they have the automatic cutters. Of course, they've always had automatic cutters on the loading dock, haven't they, Al? Yeah. And they do have one person that's supposed to check those, but he's a supervisor.
What about these older guys in other respects? You have any other observations about them?
No, not that I can think of right off the bat.
They tend to live in conventional housing. Most potash miners do or don't live in mobile homes.
Mostly conventional.
Mostly conventional housing. Unlike, say, construction workers.
Unlike construction.
Do you regard what's Carlsbad like? Has it changed over the years? And there's more shopping centers, but no big mall type.
No big mall type. One small shopping center.
Yeah. So what other any cultural changes you see more? There's more retirees settling down
There
here
are
from
more
the north,
retirees
in the southwest.
in the northeast.
What do they mean in registration terms now? They tend to be Middle Western Republicans.
Yeah, it's going to change.
It's like Tucson, something like that. Phoenix, but more drastic. What about other industries? No other manufacturing industry has come in here. This is a tourist, retiree, and essentially potash mining town.
Well, essentially potash, tourism, retiree, and of course now, Mike, we've got a good deal of gas activity going on.
Good deal of gas drilling.
Gas drilling.
This is oil as well, or just gas?
And some oil.
What
mainly
about
gas.
the reported use of potash or salt mines for storage of, what is it, dangerous atomic wastes or poison gas? I don't know what's
Well,
is that under discussion yet?
It's still under discussion and still under consideration, as I understand it, with about another year to go, another year and a half perhaps, of a feasibility study being made. Well, it simply means that we'll use some of the old mined out areas
The potash, the very old potash.
Very old potash mined out areas to store the stuff in.
Now, what will be stored there? Radioactive waste?
The waste of
Yeah.
radioactive
That's in like
materials.
concrete casings? Or
It'll be
something?
in, well, I think concrete casing, and metal casing, and lead casing, and
Yeah. Is there different community feelings about that, or?
generally I think that the community feels like put it in.
It's kind of indifferent, I think.
I think they're really indifferent to it, and
I've never heard too much.
the theory is they've been sold on the idea for putting another 100 jobs, put it in.
Yeah.
That's the idea. There has not been much local publicity about the life of atomic waste, or,
No, this has been brought to us by outsiders,
yeah.
Kansas people in the scientific field who are opposed to the storage
Yeah.
of waste materials.
So that the
place in
local
country.
press, that meant a great deal in front of the people to create any big
Not
issue.
really.
Now, what about if those workings were old workings but connected with present-day workings? Are there such situations, or they would not use such a?
I don't think they'd use. That's been.
They'd
considered. I don't
use
think
like a
they'd use
totally
it.
separate shaft and a separate. Well, there'd be a
Right.
wall of ore between them, right?
As a matter of
Body
fact,
ore.
the study is to probably seal a. Let me put it this way, Mike. If this is an entire worked out area here, a shaft will be worked out areas in this position, and the rest of it's out this way. That the idea would be to shut this off here and put another shaft in back at here. As I understand.
For this purpose.
For this purpose. And then there's also some talk of saying this shooter. What they're after, as I understand, is the ability of the potash or the salt to absorb any radiation that might appear from the waste.
Yeah.
In terms of saying, all right, the salt will pick it up.
Rather than move through water or something and
Right.
endanger others.
So that
But there is water straters as you drill down to potash. At least the people who
Yeah.
did the shaft mining tell me they
In
go
about
through
400-foot area.
a couple of water levels, right? One major water level.
This is
300 or
true.
400 feet down, I think.
And I don't know enough scientifically to know whether
I don't either.
a release of radiation could affect then the whole water supply over a vast area if that water's in motion. What do you see as the future in view of these young guys? How do you speculate about it? Like in coal mining, there's a great deal of speculation. Could the industry end up in chaos if these guys don't understand? Unionism. Here they enjoy their jobs. The workforce is easy to get a hold of because it's not as dangerous as coal mining. Is that right? They won't have any trouble recruiting. You don't see that now. But there's a possibility the whole damn thing may end.
Possibility that the industry may close down.
The whole
Whole big deal.
in Carlsbad, and Canada would just take over.
Canada would just be
How real is that?
pretty real.
What does that do to the gut? Say, each of you have about 20, 25 years. Two of you have 25 years seniority. What does it do to you? Whether you remain as you are now, rank and file guys, or you became supervisor, whatever. What does it do? This is your community.
It doesn't leave you nonplussed, I'll tell you.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean.
It doesn't leave you nonplussed.
Mining is always likely to play, but you never thought of potash playing out. It always
Right.
seemed like an exception to coal or copper, right?
And-
Like it was here forever.
The tragic thing about a fellow who has worked in the potash industry as a miner on the surface is that without question his ability is limited in terms of mining. Because, in my case, in Jack's case, in terms of our age, let's forget mining forever. If they shut down tomorrow or 5 years from now, there are too many younger people.
Yeah, let's
So
take
that's-
mining. Let me just question on that. First of all, the mining experience isn't even applicable. Suppose you were an all-around miner or a supervisor. You can't just walk over to copper and do it. It's stovepipe. It's totally another world, right?
Hard rock,
Right?
hard rock.
You can't, and you're not interested in coal, obviously. So that knocks you out of that. If you're on the surface, in a loading dock setting, this is so close to the chemical industry, you'd almost have to move to sulfur or something more related to it than mining, right?
That's right.
I mean, it isn't like other mining. What do you got, 7 or 8 different, didn't you say chemical products coming out of here? And in effect, they're chemical products, right? Mineral products.
So that,
So it gives the guys,
thought. in terms of looking, saying to yourself that I may not be here 5 years from now. So what do? Stand around on one leg and say, I hope that Social Security is high enough and my pension's getting big enough, fast enough so that 5 years from now I can retire, hopefully.
Yeah. So for the older guys, that's all right. What does it do to the morale of the young guys? Their mind isn't on it, you don't think?
Their mind is not on it. Frankly,
that's number one. They never do think about it.
Well, they never think about it.
They're going to live forever and always get a job.
Right. They wouldn't think about it in the first place. But if an older fellow tells a young guy 5 years from now there's not going to be money here, he toughs it out and then decides. Well, if he's smart, he begins to look for something else immediately. And, I'm sorry to say that
we're not very smart.
We're not too successful in having them say, well, I think I have found something that has a future to it, and I'm gone.
Yeah.
So that it could be a disaster in terms of
human misery and everything right here in Carlsbad and for this community, right? I mean, this community just can't have waitresses and hotel jobs.
We had a mine shut down in 1960 and 1969, 1970. U.S. Pros, U.S. Potash, one of the
original potash mine.
Shut down, and 1,000 people lost their jobs, with the related people surrounding that needs to be of service to 1,000 people. So that
what happened to those guys?
What happened to those guys? They all left.
They couldn't be absorbed into the other companies because even starting over with a zero seniority, right?
Even with a zero seniority, which they need to start, which is where they start out, because the companies could not couldn't absorb them. There were, I'm sure, 1, 2, 3, particularly people in
but it was a bad time for the other companies.
Time. Guys who have $4,000 or $5,000.
What year did you say that was?
69?
69 or 70.
They really scattered.
Guys with $4,000 or $5,000 worth of equity in a house just got up and moved.
Wasn't that the period in which the real estate values here were about at their lowest ever? I mean, a house that sold for $13 today, you couldn't give away for $9, right? And that type of thing. I remember this.
That's when I sold my house.
Yeah. You always pick the right point in the market, Jack, would you say?
Well, one way to make money is when Jack buys, you sell. When he sells, you buy.
Vice versa.
Make money,
What does that mean today, Al? I better get some advice. I don't have Harvey Ford or a big
What does that mean today in terms of real estate? The real estate market is in top shape, believe it or not, in Carlsbad.
But this eventuality we're talking of could knock it no matter what the northern retiree situation. It would be a blow of vast proportion.
Unless, of course, that as is happening, for example, we have a warehouse put in for service to the gas drilling people, which might employ 15 people, and then we have another related service deal. Small junk, really.
Because how many potash jobs are there right now in the basin? Aside from the ones dependent on it, how much would you say? 3,000, maybe.
That's at least that. If you're going to take
not the related ones.
Jobs. Not the related.
No,
directly. Well, of course, Joy is directly related. It goes, but
the industry
Joy
still at all personnel 3,000.
Okay, that's executive and everything.
Executive and everything. Related.
Is this like I mean, do you think this effect, ever since the shadow of Canada, when you went up there, do you think it's been over this town ever since? For 10 years there's been a shadow of Canada on it. It's probably the only place in the United States with a Canadian shadow on it. Because you almost know those are the richest deposits, they're accessible, they're Canadian miners ready to work them right, they've solved the technical problem.
Besides that, the Potash Company of America is core drilling right now 50 miles off the coast of Newfoundland.
Still, in other words, Canada may be the biggest potash resource in the world.
PCA gets that. What's the sense of keeping Carlsbad? Right. Except geographically speaking, well, maybe we could ship it down to Houston faster, better than they can bring it down from
And that's
Canada.
all, just to the Gulf.
That's it, to the Gulf, that's right.
You got one
thing going to South America that isn't a big load. If it's a big load, send all the barges up the Great Lakes and load them up and bring them down. That's all.
So there is a real shadow over Carlsbad, like it's never been.
When Canada smiles, we have to try to figure out what they mean when they say, it's all right. We're not going to raise the pro-ration.
Now, up there they have a rationing like Texas oil. In a sense, they hold back production for fear of what they'll do to the world markets. Now, the government intervenes with the industry to do that. Is that the way it's done, or is the industry really in charge of that?
The government is in a suit with Noranda
Who is
against.
Noranda?
It's one of the. Is Noranda?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Potash company.
It's one of the potash companies, one of the Canadian potash companies, which is crying about the limitation in production. The Canadian government has joined that company against the regional government of Saskatchewan, or is it Saskatoon?
Well, Saskatchewan's the
Saskatchewan.
province.
The province.
The
The province.
Saskatoon's the town. Yeah.
The province government
Is the one that's setting the limits. Okay. This is rationing of production.
Right. Now, one of the companies, a Canadian company within that area, says to its government, the Canadian government, says, can't do this. So now the Canadian government is working with Noranda against the regional government.
There's a further irony in all this, isn't there? That at a moment when world food production has the greatest necessity, it's probably next to energy, a more important long-term crisis, and fertilizer could help China, Russia, everybody with problems, South America, so that you would have said a number of years ago, gee, won't this day help Carlsbad when it comes, having come about, right? They may get all they need out of Canada without having to touch this.
Without having to touch it, of course.
Is there any thought being given to U.S. government subsidies to keep this industry alive so we don't lack
Yeah,
of?
we've been to Washington.
Yeah.
Been to Washington.
And the United Steelworkers are working on it, do you think, or is it a minor priority?
It's a minor problem. It's an irritable problem, I think.
Yeah, you bug them with it.
Minor.
For the few members you have here.
Oh, well,
You mean no imagination?
Goldberg said in 1962 when we had the strike, I had more pressure put on me for 4,000 damn potash miners than I've had for 400,000 IAM guys.
I never heard
on the coast.
Yeah, he did too.
So that we were, we've learned our lesson in that area. We haven't been successful in it.
But you're working on it.
We're working at it. But it's funny.
Well, they say that Canada has 500 years supply of potash.
Yeah, I believe.
See, and we're oversupplied in this thing, frankly speaking, in terms of the countries being able to absorb potash.
You need nitrogen and
Right.
phosphate for
Right.
fertilizer much
These are-
more than
these
you
are-
need
right.
potash.
These
Potash
are-
is the third ingredient.
Right. And we're
Third place.
you know,
It's a weak
overstocking.
third, really.
Right.
If you had nitrogen, you'd be
No.
on top of the world probably.
If the industry had, looked forward, and if geographically and economically speaking, I guess, we had put in mixing plants.
What do you mean by that? Oh, you mean do the fertilizer mixing right here? Yeah. Bring the phosphate in here and ship into the whole Southwest.
This thing was so much better than gold in the old days. Why the
Yeah.
hell do that? We're making too much money now.
Yeah, I see your point. So where is fertilizer mixing?
Mostly in the southeast.
Southeast.
Yeah,
Alabama,
it always
Louisiana.
was there.
Alabama.
Actually, the new southwestern farming doesn't mix much. It just puts in pure nitrogen, puts in single ingredients, right? That's what I see, at least, those big nitrogen tanks.
That's all they do.
Yeah.
They put it all in and open that one, open that one. There's a 100-pound bag.
Probably might have been left behind technologically, though, anyway. Mixing may be going out like old-time cotton farming. That's get past it.
But, the assumption is still correct. I've sat down at the table with the company and say, well, our production is running 13% of our, I had 13% ahead of our demand. And you sit there and say, well, 1972, 73, that's not going to be the case. Well, fortunately, it happens not to be the case now, but we've got pro-rationing is what's causing it. Not that our figures were correct, but
This fear you described, though, doesn't slow these young guys up, though, in their impulse buying, does it? Or anything?
No.
They don't even know about it. But it does have an effect on the over 40 guys you're talking about. The over 45s, actually.
Well, to the guy who does a little thinking about it, yeah.
To most of them, or just to a small part? Most of the over 45s, you'd say, do view this whole thing differently. They don't make major investments without thinking like they're planning a little bit, worried.
They won't buy it.
A lot of them are thinking of converting into middle-class occupations, probably. Or other things cross their mind. If they can't meet the reach.
Some guys are doing double duty now. They work at PCA and they're trying to find something on the side to do.
Yeah, right.
To acquaint themselves with something to do.
Yeah, right.
And you let that.
Of course, but a lot of the occupations are service occupations. I'm thinking of just AJ Price with the bar. I mean, all bars are going to be knocked on the head if you lose these jobs here. I mean, you're not going to, everybody ain't going to be in gravy doing other things if it's dependent on the dollars flowing out of it.
So that, we talk a rosy future, but the practical situation is but we're still sitting right here on the edge.
It's a funny thing. The one place you wouldn't have thought would ever act like an old coal mining town, it lives in the same fear. They're going to deplete their reserves and shut down, and it'll be a ghost town. Well, it won't be really. It'll be the people will be ghosts.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it.
Yeah,
The town will survive in some way around
somewhere.
Carlsbad caverns
most of us that
retirees.
are older will survive. I'll survive. Jack will survive because being of the old school, that's what we'll do. You know.
Well, the
to make it
depression
down,
molded.
you know.
Yeah.
But you take the
We
other
know
fellow
how to
now.
get along.
Huh?
Yeah.
We could survive.
Well, a lot of you are multiple
yeah.
kind of mechanics. You're more like coal miners. You can do a little carpentry, plumbing, electric. You know, there are many guys.
They're always
A lot of
efficient.
jobs.
Besides that, you can always call Jack.
Live with
You
your
got a pot
wits.
of beans? Yeah,
Yeah.
good. I'll be over. You know.
It's all he's been eating for years, isn't it?
Yeah, you
Yeah,
can't even
best
buy
cook in
beans
the
now.
basement.
53 cents a pound.
Don't tell me
Pinto
about that. I
beans.
just come
Yeah.
from San Antonio, where 80% of the people make $80 a week or less.
How do they live on 53-cent
I don't
pinto
know,
beans?
Mike. I
Yeah.
tell you, I went to a place called
And milk.
Soulsburg, where they sell nothing but seconds, retreads.
What are their
do you call
what do
them?
beans cost down there
And people were pushing each other over the place.
to get into junk,
Get the
secondhand, reject,
Rejects.
yeah, reject clothing?
Reject clothing. And
I
they
don't
tell you
know
right
how
there,
and the
reject clothing.
prices. You know, we were talking about the prices in these stores. They're extremely high.
Last week, Al,
But the American, this is the fault of the American people. For example, on a meat situation, would you believe that Marge and I would sit down and cook barbecue a sirloin steak out here, pound, all right? Sit there, eat that thing.
I just did. Yeah, I just
And
did.
now-
Keep talking. Yeah.
Now we cut it in half,
Yeah.
and we cook one half tonight. We cook another half tomorrow.
Yeah.
And you know, we're no hungrier now than we were then.
Yeah. Right.
No,
That's probably good.
But
Well, in
this is
healthcare
what the meat
terms,
does.
in healthcare
This
terms,
is
we
what
were
the
wrong.
meat does.
That's why the Vietnamese and the Chinese, they all live long. They eat fish and eat right. You know, we've been eating all this stuff.
and they don't
until we're
overeat. They don't overeat. They eat
Yeah.
just
And
just
most of us overeat.
that's true.
But that's no excuse for what we're talking
No,
about, 53-cent pinto beans. That the Mexican-American population is changing here as you observe them in Carlsbad.
I think
What
think
ways, if you don't mind?
Well, I think they've changed since since 1964 when we had ECLOC, the employment things and so forth. All of those title laws thrown in.
Of course, you're not talking about school desegregation. That took place
that
here
took
early.
place,
Yeah,
even
ages.
before it ever started here,
Yeah.
because there were a few people who worked
Yeah.
on it. But in terms of taking these people and in a 10-year, 9-year period now, we've changed their whole background, economically speaking.
Well, tell me what you mean, what you've observed.
Well, we were talking earlier about the fact that as far back as 1965, which is, I say far back, 6 years ago, we didn't have over, 3, 4, 5, half a dozen
Half a dozen.
Oh, you mean these are
Mexican-Americans.
good paying jobs?
Right,
in
we
the
don't have
potash
half a dozen of
industry.
them working at the Potash Company of America. Now, geez, I'd say in our jurisdiction alone, out of 222
20.
guys, there's 75, 80, 90. All right, these are guys who've been accustomed to the service jobs that we were talking about. You find them tending bar, you find them working at the gas station, and for less than the minimum wage in this.
Yeah.
In this area. Now, the table is reversed, and they're making $350, $360 an hour minimum. From there on up
Yeah.
to $4.
What has it done to their lifestyle? or
It's
habit?
changed it. They're able to go into they're able to buy homes wherever they want to. And I wouldn't say wherever they want to. They can't buy them on Riverside Drive. But they can buy
In all sections.
in all
of
sections.
town.
They now have automobiles, good quality automobiles.
Yeah.
They're not always new, but we've always had the picture of the Mexican American running down the street
Yeah.
with a bale of wire holding his car together. This is no longer true.
What do they do as far as their children? Do their children tend to go to college?
Their children tend to go to college.
These are real changes.
These are real changes in terms of I mean, Mike's 1946, 47. How my wife put the first Mexican gal in the courthouse, for example.
Yeah. Your wife, we haven't discussed her, but she has served in an elected capacity as county, what?
County treasurer.
Elected county treasurer.
County treasurer.
And in other years, when she wasn't elected, she's been a county or state official in some
Right.
form.
But these people have changed tremendously. Their kids now go to school just as well as anybody. The older, like Jack and I versus the younger Anglo, the older Mexican American is still hollering culture and everything, and to a degree the younger one is also, but by the same token, the younger one is becoming, to use the term, more American. I don't want to say American, it doesn't sound right, but in terms of saying, I'm doing what the Joneses are doing. He's doing it. And therefore makes a change. There are a lot of young Spanish kids today who can understand anything you say to them in Spanish.
Who can what?
Understand anything you say to them in Spanish.
Now, what do you mean by that?
But when they talk, they can't talk anymore.
Oh,
In other words,
I see.
culturally
They've
they're
lost the
changing.
ability to
Well,
speak
they-
the
well,
language, but they can hear. But this is true of Italian.
This is true of Italians.
Italian.
It's been true of Portuguese. Hell,
People.
I got two brothers who couldn't say a cuss word in Portuguese anymore. They never were able to anyway, but they could understand when the mother spoke to them in the language.
Yeah.
But they never reverted back and said to the mother in
spoke back,
Portuguese or the
yeah.
father.
So
it was
the
always in
speaking,
English.
yeah, they can understand being
Understand what
spoken
they
to.
was
Yeah.
spoken to, but
This
Which is more like a foreigner. I mean, in a sense, you travel in a country, you can understand it after a while, but you can't speak it. So this has been a big change. Are you seeing the beginnings of it amongst the blacks that have gotten jobs, or not? Is it not as apparent? They're too small a number to see it? Or?
They're too small a number really to see. As I said, we've only got about 2%, and that 2% of what, 20,000, maybe we got 400 blacks in Queens, 500
Yes.
mothers, children, fathers, and everything. And we probably have 9, 4, 13, 17, 21, 20. We probably have no more than 25 blacks
In the whole potash
working in the
mine.
industry. And these are
And yet
guys-
not a one black was working as a miner, I believe, when I was in, because I
No,
was
I don't know.
Right.
First black that went to work was in 1963 in Kermac. We haven't discussed Kermac, but
No.
Kermac doesn't have any
That's
holdings in
Kerr McGee.
Kerr McGee.
But they're one of the outfits, and they were supposed to have been a National Farmers Union development. I don't know whether they ever really
Well,
were.
they split, I
They
met
split,
with the
yeah.
president up there one time when we were trying
They're
to
still-
Jim Patton and
Yeah.
some of those
It
negotiations.
wasn't Jim Patton, it was Dago that came
Right.
after him. Or maybe he was vice president. He was vice president. We had a problem out there. I went up there to Denver to talk to him. And he said, look, they do the production, that's 50%. We do the marketing, that's 50%. That's all we got to do with it. And so the guy very slyly, he says to me, of course, he said, I think probably they're afraid of the fact that if you go in and negotiate, you want to negotiate more than what the rest of them have got. And I called him by his name, whatever it was, and I said, I can guarantee you, here and now, and in writing, you put me a contract on a table similar to the one I've got at PCA, and I'll sign it.
Yeah. They never signed you, Kerr McGee never. So in a way, the one we dreamed about when they came in the basement were going to be the most liberal, never turned out to do anything.
And then Farmers Market pulled away from them altogether. Farmers Union.
so did Phillips, I think. Phillips was in there for a while.
But I'll tell you, Mike, I've been here 25 years,
Mhm.
and I can recall conversations we had when we were younger,
Right. Yeah.
and the way things should be.
Yeah.
And for Jack and I and Don, I can say that we passed this way once, and there's a hell of a difference between the time we walked in and the time we leave.
Yeah. What is the
Sure.
biggest differences? Go ahead. I mean, you're saying like we can summarize them, but how would you?
Well, I don't know about
What
the
is
other
the
two guys.
vast differences that you see, and then
The vast differences in the people.
what are those differences?
And the blacks, the Chicanos, the mixture of
And the age groupings of the other
age
sort?
groupings of the people, the discriminatory practices that were at one time more or less pretty rampant here, not here anymore.
Yeah, right.
And I can't contribute that solely to union activity, but I do contribute to there are people in this community who have a sense
Of right and
of
wrong.
right and wrong, and at different stages through this town's life, some of these people have been able to get together and say, look, this is what we're going to face, this is what we're going to come on, why don't we do something about it now? Integration was accomplished in this town starting at the first grade level, Mike.
In what year, do you remember? Was it after you came here?
Yeah, 1940, no.
It was in the early 50s, I believe.
51,
51, 52.
51 or 52. yeah.
First grade was integrated. And second
Now,
grade
at
was
that
integrated.
time, do you mean that the state law made mandatory segregation, or it said nothing
No.
about it? What do you
Said
say?
nothing. Quiet on it.
Which
We
meant
always had
that you
segregated.
could have had desegregated schools, but in fact, you had segregated schools.
Came down here and looked at this colored school they had down here, where the spigots were on the outside of water,
Yeah.
where the outside toilets were leaned over at that
Part of
time,
that
you know.
was the decency of the union leadership.
Well, I say,
I mean,
not
the
to be contributed
progressive
at all,
forces
but,
at that early
right.
stage, right? They were
Right.
a real
As I said, I
progressive
don't want to
force.
contribute at all because, you know,
No. But it was them, the
But it was who
progressive
pushed 'em.
political forces.
Well, the union, yeah, they tried
Yeah.
to get blacks even hard at the different mines here long before.
Oh, I know, yeah, that was,
64.
these were issues that were raised,
Yeah,
non-discrimination clauses, and all the companies refused them in the early years. You know, one thing that, if you were willing to reminisce a minute like you used to do, Al, your background is remarkable in a lot of ways, and I don't know whether you can remember some of the joking you used to do about Pawtucket and the Portuguese American community, but it is that unusual. And of what, in a period since McCarthyism, a whole generation has had no awareness of. I remember you telling about almost in a social club sense, do you follow me, of the effect of the left, I mean, on unemployed kids, you remember that kind of thing? And I wondered if you'd comment on it, because a lot of that is, as you
Well,
remember growing up, you know, in Pawtucket.
I remember growing up in Nantucket when I had a buddy who couldn't go to school because he had no shoes, you know. And going to the local church and say the boy needs a pair of shoes. Well, we haven't got it. Or yet the man would ride around in a big Buick, you know.
Who was the man riding?
And the priest.
Okay. You kind of rough on him, I wanted to be sure.
But I've also, you know, I also went to, I worked at J.P. Coast going through high school, you know.
Now, they were the thread, the
Yeah,
sewing
they made
thread.
the
Okay.
biggest thread
Textile
mill
industry,
in
yeah.
the world at that time. And my mother worked there for
Yeah.
a good number of years, and I worked, as I say, while I was going to high school there. But I can remember that Abel Gonçalves, who was Portuguese, who was black, boxer, real clean-cut guy, going with us. You know, we used to get up in the morning, right?
Yeah.
And go around town this way, looking for work. If we didn't
Around
find any work,
sideways, yeah.
we'd go to school.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So when we got through school, we went around the other side of town looking for work. We didn't find any, we went home. And it was another ending process looking for something to do. When you didn't do anything, you went to school. But I remember going to J.P. Coates when there would be me, a Portuguese, a Greek, a Polak, a Frenchman, and we'd all go up and you knock on the window and the guy, what do you want? I'm looking for work. No work today, you know. Looking for work. Fill the application out. So you'd fill out application. Hell, I fill out applications until I run out of my ears, you know. But I noticed one thing. Every time I filled out an application, and Abel's Gonçalves was in the back. Every time they got to him, they said, we got enough applications.
Pull it down.
Pull it down.
He was
Real
a
nice
black
guy. He was black. Real nice guy. But all of those kind of things when I was
They
younger,
helped to
you know.
mold you.
Well, what the hell was there to mold, Mike? I didn't know any better. I knew there wasn't enough, and I remember my old man spent 13 weeks on WPA and tried to pay the government back. You know, well, that's another story.
But he tried to pay him back.
Oh yeah.
They rejected his check, mailed it back.
No, we talked to these boys.
Talked him out of that.
Crazy or something, you know. But as far as we were, to go stand in line to get a bag of flour,
Yeah.
and horse meat used to come in white tin cans with yellow lids, you know, and you see the guy that used to make the bleach water in our town. That was a big thing back then.
Yeah,
The woman never wore clothes unless she had bleach water.
Water.
That's right.
And you could send off
Liquid, yeah.
you could send off 25 cents and get a formula on how to make bleach water. You know, you got the tanks and hell, he was in business. You know, you got a delivery truck, and this guy was rich
Yeah.
compared to the rest of you. When it came time to go get the flour, guess who was there? He was there. So all those kind of things would tend to let you look at it, and I suppose I would feel about the same way a Mexican American kid would feel if he lived in Pompa Street, which is right over here.
Right here.
And you
Yeah,
walk
we're
down-
in the middle of it
and you
right
walk-
now. We're in Pecan
Walk
territory,
down,
in
walk
the
down
middle of the
Riverside
Mexican.
Drive on Christmas night. You know, he just, all these people I got, I ain't got nothing.
You got nothing.
I used to go up to Oak Hill Platte and do that, you know. That was the rich church. But those were things that make you think what the hell's going on.
This was the 30s. You were growing up as a very young kid in the 30s, right? Reaching your teens, I assume.
Went on my first strike when I was 9.
Oh, come on.
I didn't go on strike. I won't know that.
You're right.
Yeah.
He was
What
helping
was
me.
he doing?
My father was a weaver.
Yeah. At Coates or
No,
another?
Lorraine Mills, which was just 10 minutes.
When do you think this strike was? During that?
Geez, I was 21, 31, I guess, 32.
Right in the middle of the Depression.
He used to work at Manville Jenks, which was further away.
Yeah.
And we had the old English cobblestone streets in those days. And the police rode horses, you know. And they used to go after the strikers. The billy clubs off the backs of their horses. Guess what we used to do? Those little kids. Remember the agates? We used to take agates and throw them on the cobblestone.
Yeah, marbles would really send the horse.
And
wouldn't
they
it?
had a horse that used to power. But
You'd upend him,
yeah,
huh?
well, you know, you'd make the horse move over anyway. You know,
Yeah.
And maybe the cop would lose his balance. And I was old enough to remember when we went to JP, I believe it was JP Coast, where the president of the local union walked up to the National Guard line and this kid was standing with a rifle. He walked up to the old kid. What are you going to do, shoot your old man? Keep your old, of course, you know, that's my father, you know. And there's the captain, I don't have attention, you know, the guy. He grabbed the gun off the kid and gave the kid a flap. But those kind of things tend to make you, but it's all wasted more or less, Mike.
Why is
You
it
know,
wasted?
well, look where I'm at.
Well,
You know,
that's one way.
that's, you know, I was never a totally disciplined type fella.
I never knew you'd be a pessimist either.
I got shanghaied out of an air base one time simply because I told the captain, by God, if the married men could go to town, so could I. Young, unmarried guys, we had the same basic needs.
I don't know where you went.
They shipped me out of there 2 days later. Wendover, Utah.
Right on that. Your life wasn't hard if you're in Carlsbad.
Well, you know,
You made out all right. You met your wife here.
oh well, of course that's why I'm here. Secondly, Mike, I could,
There was something attractive about the place.
no, not really, I hated the place. But I was brought up in the city of Pawtucket, 80,000 people, next to Providence with 250,000 people. Central Falls had 30,000 people on 1 square mile, including parks, fire
Central
stations,
Falls
schools.
was what, a portion of?
No, it's a
another
city of its
place,
own.
Yeah,
1 square mile,
yeah.
30,000 people, including a hospital,
That meant
fire
multiple
department,
story
6 high.
buildings, 6 walk-ups, everything.
Walk down the street, the slop would come down on you if you will. Once you're brought up in that kind of thing, you know,
Atmosphere.
you know, I played football on the street, made out of rock, asphalt, scraped my face many a time, bruised my elbows. And actually, when the old boy said, "I know where we can get some money, all we got to do is rip out the screen. I know where the box is," that that was a big decision, because I was pretty well integrated with it. But the other thing staying here was that 3 telephone calls, Mike, I could find my kid, and if I couldn't, they better watch it. You know, I didn't, they could do what they wanted to and all that kind of stuff. But if I wanted them, 3 phone calls, I better find them. If I didn't, back there, hell, I used to get in the morning, leave the house, and I come back, where you been? Looking for work. Sit down and eat your supper.
Yeah.
I won't tell them what I was doing. You know, I might have been robbing a canoe or something. But it makes you, and of course, as you know, Mike, I've been down the road a piece, and the road has held many branches.
Yeah.
Where you could have gone You know, like that.
Well, when you see guys in real trouble, you say that, but for the grace of God, do well.
That's right. And so you get to
close.
you get to the age where I'm at now, and what the hell is there left? You know, number one, I don't have the education to I don't think I got the inclination to go get one at this point. But yeah. So I'll take $100,000 life insurance, and maybe I'll die, and my wife will marry some new joker, you know.
Well, now that's the most cynical way to look at it.
The best way to look.
She's getting cynical with
Wait a
it.
minute,
Yeah.
I've been cynical a long time. A long, long time. I remember dealing with Rufus one time, and he said, "What's your name, son?" That's how far back it was.
That's how far back it was. What's your name?
son? I said, "Alexander." He said, "I had a dog by that name." I said, "That's funny. I had a dog behind me or you, Rufus." What did you say your name was again? You know.
That was the big company bargain that broke the 50 strike.
He's a smart guy. Just went the wrong way, that's all.
That's all.
That's right. He went the wrong way. Well, he went to school with, what's his name? He used to be lawyer from my mill. Paul?
Did he? You don't mean Nat Witt.
Not
That
with.
way.
Did he?
Didn't he
They
go-
were in
Nat went to
Harvard or
Chicago.
something? Chicago? I don't know where they
Chicago,
were, but
University of
I don't know
Chicago.
what school.
And Poole went to Washington. Went to work for the NLRB.
Yeah.
And while he was there, he decided that it was a hell of a place to live. A hell of a good time could be had if you had the money. And the way he was heading was not where the money was. So he turned
NLRB
himself
for
around.
life. He turned around, went to work.
Well,
for
he
the
picked up
company.
all he could. He turned around. I'll take his case. You know.
I heard of him. He died a number of years ago.
Yeah.
Matt Wood died?
No, yeah.
Rufus Poole.
I think that.
Not which day.
Is he?
I thought he died. Yeah.
I'm not sure. I think Orville told me he was in bad health or something.
Well, I thought he died. Yeah, old Rufus, they asked him for $100,000 for a donation.
What were your experiences with Mine Mill? Because you,
With my mill?
how mixed were your feelings about how they went?
How my mill went? I thought.
How effective they were as a trade
I thought my mill, in terms of union workers, and effective. I think they got caught up in this red thing.
union. Yeah, the whole McCarthy period was way beyond them. Yeah.
That's all. So,
Fifth.
people couldn't understand it.
These cowboys.
People. Well, it's not really being a cowboy.
It wasn't just here. I mean, they were being wiped out in a lot of other places and kind of were
Yeah, you
cowboys.
give people something they don't understand, and the first impression is an impression of fear. I don't understand. I
Yeah.
don't want anything to do with it.
Well, I
You take
think
Jack Lackey and you say, oh Christ. There are a lot of things you could say today, Jack Lackey, my father used to discuss politics with us boys quite a bit. I can remember my grandfather used to say, "Don't yell, keep it down." What's the matter with you,
keep
old
it
man?
down, yeah.
You know, what's that? Hell, the cops will have to be outside now.
Yeah.
Always. So that even in those days when I was a kid, you discuss a whole lot of politics, but you try to keep it down. And
was
you know,
your
I've been-
father a good educator for you? Do you think,
No,
on some of these issues?
on the union issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
On everything else. Yeah, my father, I'm not taking anything away from my father. He's dead now, but my father had no education. See, my mother was a shop steward and couldn't even read or write.
At the coach plant.
That's right. Sat down and negotiated. As a matter of fact, the company told her one day after she got through in line, said, "Mary, we'll tell you what to do. If you can get half these people signed up for the union, we'll give you 10 cents an hour raise." My mother took it on and lost. I can remember when it was easy to buy a pair of silk stockings for 50 cents and pay union dues of 50 cents a week. I remember when I first came to work at PCA, guy walked up, "You want to join the union?" I said, "The hell for? How is this union business?"
That was your first attitude.
Yeah, no.
Why was that?
What the hell?
Yeah,
Well, I was testing the guy.
You test him
Yeah,
out.
see what he was going to
It was your
He
nature
was going
to
to tell
test
me,
him
you
out,
know.
yeah. What for? Listen to his argument, see if he was good at it.
It's easy.
Was he any good at it?
Oh, yeah. He told me we're going ahead. I was, I didn't understand. I said, "Well, you're selling me good, man." But now I don't want to sign every day, So I told him, I said, "I don't have to sign up for 30 days." Where'd you find that out? I said, I knew it all the time. What the hell you let me argue with you for? Oh, sweet Anderson. She's tired now.
What was
But,
his old Zeke? Was that
no,
Zeke? Anderson?
Sweet.
No, I didn't know Sweet.
Old Zeke's still
Is Zeke still around?
Yeah, hell, he's still.
He must have turned more reactionary than he was when I knew him.
Oh, well. I let him run me out of the union one night. I said, "Oh, somebody shoot him." We didn't care even then, you know. But
Well, you'll turn the tables on him one of these days.
I'll fire him.
That's all, yeah.
First chance I get.
Yeah, first chance you get. Is he on top two now?
No,
He never came up?
he's
Stayed in the hole, huh?
he's an old. Oh, Jack, I could have gone back 30 days after we came up, couldn't I?
Yeah, by then you decided to not live in God's good open air. You were in dust all the time, weren't you?
Well, I felt better, and, you know,
Do you have any opinions as to whether potash is dangerous as a substance? Breathing?
I'm convinced that it is, but I can't convince anybody else.
Not even now.
Yeah,
well, you know, the
It's-
problem is that you take an untrained mind in terms of saying, well, what is potash doing to you? Well, it's difficult to try to figure out. Basically, you know, we one time rode all over the world trying to find out
Yeah.
what the hell was going on. And all we could find out was that the membranes in the nose were being eaten through. And I've looked and looked for that situation in this basin. I haven't found it yet. But I had a guy recently who, you know, gave us a talk. And he said, oh, hell, he said, potash is soluble. He said, it won't hurt you. He said, it goes through your guts and just cleans them out. You know?
Now, who was
I
he?
said, no, how come all these guys got ulcers?
Yeah.
He said, well, I said, I'll tell you why they got ulcers. Number one, they got a steady job.
Yeah.
Number two, they're fat. You don't know what to do with themselves now. You take the other guy who's the construction worker who's traveling over here, and he's drinking up, fighting, and everything. He's not worrying about a thing. He ain't got anything else.
you get the
Yeah. And the guy struck me, that was real funny. You know. But I, got to him afterwards, and I said, well, seriously, he said, we have fun with it. I hesitate to ask doctors around here because there's no way I can feel
And
that
again,
I'm
you
gonna
don't
get a
have
straight
the
answer.
influence of the international to get a big research job done
Well,
internationally.
right.
I mean, not the international union to do one in other countries is what you need. Yeah.
But you need them to,
How about Occupational Health and Safety Act? Does that have much impact?
Yeah, that's having
It's having its effect.
it's having an effect. There's
Nothing
not
as
an
big as the
impact.
Bureau of Mines stuff
No.
on coal. That's day and night. That's just changed the whole coal
Yeah, I know,
production
it's changed that.
situation.
But ours is, again,
Well,
little
see, we
things
don't
going
come
on.
under OSHA. Here.
No.
We come under that other one.
We come under the
MA.
Bureau of Mines, I guess. Isn't it?
You're not under OSHA?
No.
NIOSH. I mean, you're not under the Occupational Health and Safety Act.
No.
You're under the amendment to the
Amendment
Bureau of
to
Mines
the
Act.
Bureau of Mines
The
Act.
skilled
got a-
lobby did.
And it's
You
got
probably got the
it's got a
weakest
nickname.
of all
Yeah,
of them
we
because
got-
coal
yeah.
got strengthened afterwards and you got left out again.
But I understand that they're supposed to take it out from
What did you say?
yeah. I understand they're supposed to take it out from
Speak again, old sweet peas.
can't meet the occasion, folks.
What's
I understand it's supposed to take it out from the Bureau and put it in on the ocean.
We will have a fun
I want to ask you
contest here in a
something.
minute.
You're an old driller.
You know,
Now, what kind of pocket did you just hit?
Dinosaur.
So what?
You were going to illustrate what to me as a driller? An old dinosaur.
We got that down clearly.
Oh, but it
It
is
had dull tones to it.
We didn't get clear enough.
But I used to sit around with a guy like Howie Ford and talk like this.
Yeah.
I don't believe that stuff.
You don't believe it.
Why not?
He must live in an unreal
I
world.
remember
huh?
the Depression. I said, you do?
What was his father worth? He wasn't on WPA.
He's selling cars, you know.
Oh,
My father was pretty smart, left him some money. Yeah, I said, I used to have to work. I said, where'd you work? I said, I worked in my father's garage. I said, you.
that was a
I used to
depression.
work in my father's garden in the back. Hoe, shovel, growth stuff. Go out there and pick it out and eat it. But, some people just, you try to tell younger people, forget it.
There's another part of your reminiscing that I remember earlier, Al, that a number of people have this experience of. And that is that some of the current generation, confronted with this communist issue, post-McCarthy, they have no concept of like what the left was like to Depression kids. I mean, it was not a conspiracy that was approaching them usually. It was more like joining an athletic club or something, you know what I mean? It was the thing to do if you were mad at the system, you know what I mean? I think you told me of some experiences, and I wasn't meaning to, for you to get into anything except what you were interested in, because not talking about the ideology of it or the errors of, or anything, but rather you had experiences such as some of the coal miners have, like around Grandtown told me. I mean, the Grandtown coal miners at one point were so goddamn mad. The communist meeting be called to be 2,000 people out there. There'll be people selling ice cream cones at the edge of the crowd. You know what I mean? It was a mass movement of which, in the Depression, the average person today has no idea.
I had no idea, because during the Depression you sit at home, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm in Potash.
There wasn't any TV.
No,
I mean, it was nothing.
TV.
You couldn't go to a
Radio
bar.
wasn't
There was no excitement.
Yeah, radio was
Roosevelt
excitement,
talked now and then. That was a
a
little
fireside chat. But actually, in terms of what we know about TV today and radio people weren't coming out and saying, here's what's happening in Boston. They tended to stifle everything.
Yeah.
So the young man come home and said, Earl Browder's going to be in Boston.
Right.
The caravan took off.
Yeah, bunch of cars.
And we all sat up there and,
Singing songs,
so nice.
Did you have any Portuguese songs like Bandeira Rossa?
You better believe it.
You better believe it. You remember any of them?
No.
Give me one, at least like Bandeira Rossa. Okay.
I can't.
You remember some of those, don't you? I mean, I'm trying to think of some of those funny ones.
I remember my mother and father.
They're almost, yeah. But they were probably, some of the strikes were probably lead rather than the standard.
I know a couple of kids who used to deliver daily work and never thought anything about it.
Right in Potash.
Yeah. Put it in your little red wagon, pull it down.
Little red wagon, that was symbolic.
Collecting your money.
Yeah. Main thing was to collect your money.
And my kid, what they say, geez, don't ever tell anybody we deliver. Don't worry about it. It's all, everybody did it.
Yeah.
Look,
In a working class neighborhood full of people on WPA, why Christ, the system wasn't working.
Look, if that was to happen today, today the statement is we're going to have a recession. How far down we're going, nobody really knows.
No, right.
See, but you take anybody that's 35 years of age today, 35 years of age today, ain't never seen a tough day in his life, unless he's been a member of a disenchanted group or minority.
No, that's true. Black or something.
Black,
or a family on welfare. They were raised in that kind of family.
But the majority of these guys, forget,
They do. No, that is the most significant thing about these kids. They do not have an idea of poverty or of being without a job.
I asked one kid one time, I said, look, you got 3 kids. Yep. And I said, what would you do if one of your kids come over there and grabbed you by the trousers and said, Daddy, I'm hungry. You don't have anything to give it. He said, well, I'd probably call you up and ask you where you want to meet at midnight so we can go get you. And I think, but the old immigrant, with his, ethics and his ethnic background, came from a place at that time, because he came here, it was worse.
Had a shot in it.
So he came here, and no matter what they said to him, what they did to him, at least I'm walking on paved streets.
That's right.
At least I can, see the trees. At least I can pick up a piece of wood, and I used to have to go steal it in the old country.
No, you're exactly right.
And so they stood fast and still. So, there were exceptions. But the guy who then had the guy among the ethnic people who had the education, the ability to read mainly, who knew what the hell he was reading, he was the guy that was telling everybody, what are you guys around here for?
Yeah, right.
So, my old man went to bootlegging. That's another story.
Tell it. That must have been some funny events.
I was in a movie with my wife not too long ago, and there was one of these thrill ride chases.
Yeah.
And I was just sitting there, and I was watching that guy driving. He was driving beautiful, All of a sudden, I jumped up. I said, "No!" And he hit that sucker, and he turned him over into the into the gas tanks and it would go up, you know. And my wife said, how did you know he was going to hit that guy right there? He said, I've been in the same situation. You got to hit that guy at the right time. If you don't, you kill him, you kill yourself. I said, well, where'd you see that? I was with my old man one night, and we had 5-gallon cans of pure alcohol. That's all you used to make. You know, I used to cut it in a car. We would deliver it. They sit in after us to hijack the thing. And the cops caught up with us. So after a while, we got to play Ring Around the Rosie. We was chasing one another. Now, we was going into Providence, and the guy was chasing us. My old man was behind a cop car. When that cop went around that corner, my old man hit that cop and it went into the store. Oh, well, anyway.
Carlsbad looked pretty good after he placed race. He said, I couldn't stand the place. He said, at least know where to find the year.
When I was 16 years old, my old man had put it still in his place. I was sitting there listening to all this kid stuff. They kept saying, Jesus, we got to get somebody to go in. Pick up the hardware. Then you have to go buy copper tubing, you know, and all that kind of stuff. Barrel staves and geez, everything. So fine, I got, why don't you send me, huh?
Up, yeah.
Send you west. I go down hard dress gone. Nobody knows me. How do you know about that? So they got the still all put up. Sitting at home one night, the old man got a phone call. He left home. Next morning, one of the partners came over and said, they got the still. Yeah. They'd seen one of them going in the hardware store.
Yeah.
See how stupid they were? No, this was pure chasing money, being hungry, and you do, you know. And I've kept many a bottle of beer, and I've cleaned many a barrel. And my old man had to speak downstairs in the basement. I was 4 or 5, and I was a cute kid, had a full head of hair. You know, nice looking boy. Sit down there, panhandle, get all kinds of money.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know how those kids feel on that bridge over the Juarez, huh?
I was walking down El Paso one day, and I stopped and I looked up the alley. And I said, what are you looking at? I said, I'm looking at the 2 kids. She said, what are they doing there for? They're searching for food, that's what they're doing. And they were in there. And they're down in there digging in those garbage cans. Of course, I never dug for food, but I dug for everything that was worth a dime. So it looked like it was worth a dime. I used to play games with the rag man. We used to have a guy come around, you know, once a week, hauling the rags.
Yeah, I remember.
We used to go get our aluminum, copper, and we'd get a piece of metal and put inside there. Pound that hell, put it on his scale, you know. Oh, hell, you know, that Jew had that scale fixed up, you know. If you had a half a pound of stuff, it showed up as a quarter of a pound. And we'd argue like hell with him. You know, it's only worth 2 cents. That's all I'm going to give you. 2 cents. Take it or leave it. I'll take it.
Yeah.
What are you arguing so much? I'll take it. That's all you're going to give it. Give me the 2 cents, you know. Then take the 2 cents, run around the corner. How much did you steal off that wagon, buddy?
Yeah, while the argument was going on. So, yeah, that was the main thing.
Yeah, down the railroad track one time, busted in, you know, the old refrigerator cars used to have a door on the top.
Yeah.
About 25-pound sack of onions. Yeah, man, we was holding them down to the gang. They were run off, you know. You know, I staggered home with mine, threw it on the table. Where'd you get that? I was up on the avenue, Mama. She said, you know that big manhole cover? I could lie like a dog.
Yeah.
That big manhole cover. She said, so this truck went over there. You know how it is, everything jumps over it. She said, yeah, and it
Dumped it off.
fell off the truck. Whistle and guy kept going. So I just picked up. Here it is. Good son. You know, in the cabin. You know, 30 minutes later. So Alexander, good boy at home? Yeah, what do you want? So I talked to him. What for? We didn't trust cops. What for? I think he stole. My boy steal? What are you talking about? Yeah. Call me up. How's it come? See, did you get one of them bag of onions? I didn't even answer. My mother come around with the back of her hand, caught me right through here.
Sent you across the room.
You better believe it. She got the onion, gave it to the cop. He looked at it. That wasn't the end of the story. My old man came home.
Yeah.
She told him about it.
Really
You were
got a
starting
lot.
out wrong, weren't you? They were going to straighten you out.
Well, there was nothing in my environment to make me otherwise, I'll tell you that. So, except
Well,
my
you were
mother-
saying earlier,
Except my
though,
mother and father, of course.
Yeah.
They tried.
and
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 it
you
was
were
successful.
saying that you remember we were talking about the Welsh miners and their cultural difference. You were telling about your dad, of what he did understand, right? He didn't have much formal education.
Right.
What was it you were telling about when you went to service? You remember his respect for books. If you remember.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know,
What? Yeah, go ahead.
my father used to believe that I had to go to school every day. Rain, snow, sleet, shoes,
Yeah.
no
Right.
shoes, no travel. My mother was a firm believer in this. Go to school every day.
Yeah.
But
Then you'll get ahead. You'll
Well,
be in
that
the
was a
shape
theory.
we're in. Yeah, that
You
was
know.
the idea.
that was a theory. The thing that was lacking in the theory was the understanding of your own mother and father in terms of what they were doing. All they knew was that if you went to school
book
every
learning,
day,
you got it.
you had to get something in your head.
Yeah.
You know, like rain falling on a piece of stone.
Yeah.
But when it came time to a decision, for example, as to what the hell am I going to do with my life, or where am I
Yeah,
going,
right.
or where have you been, or what have you done, or, nothing.
I
Absolutely
couldn't.
nothing. So that,
There, your generation gap was very
right,
serious.
Very
Yeah.
serious.
Yeah.
Very, very serious. So that if your old man bought you something for Christmas, it was generally a book. It was either written in Portuguese, or it was a history book, or, so if you wanted a book at school, he was willing to put the money up. So that with no TV, no nothing, you did one hell of a lot of reading. And so,
But you've got to be grateful for that, Al, because you've
Oh,
ended
yeah,
up
yeah,
with a
yeah.
very self-educated guy through prolific reading.
and I brought my own kids up this way.
Yeah.
And then, as far as the theory of all of it, I wasn't capable of beginning, but I got a couple of smart kids, that are now able to go in different. But the same thing, and with the twins.
Yeah.
Just last night I was sitting there, the twins don't do this and the twins don't do that. I'm reading to them, the kids are getting books. And this is the way I did my own kids. Put them, okay, put it, they never pick it up. So when I went off to the service, I had a
You were how old then?
18. Oh, I had a hell of an idea about the military stuff.
You thought it was going to straighten you out. Yeah, straight.
And I was going to be a hero and all that kind of stuff. And I was going to get
What
some
year
art.
was it?
1940.
Going to save the country to boot.
So the old man gave me that. I remember this set of encyclopedias was in the funny papers. And I had them.
He gave them to you to take with you.
Yeah, I
What?
had them
How
up
many
until
volumes?
10 volumes.
10 volumes.
Maybe 8. Yeah, it
What
was
did he
10.
pay for them? $29.95 in the
A lot
funny
of money,
papers. Yeah, a lot of money then. Yeah, like 300 today.
Well, and I
It's
had
a
a
big deal.
philosophy.
From A to Z.
psychology.
You'd
A to
learn
Z,
it all.
everything.
You'd
the
go
whole
from
thing.
A to Z, you'd learn
It
a
wasn't a
lot.
hell of a lot about anything, but there was something
Remember
about
Nye
even
Bevan, he
interior
started on this,
decorating.
well, only went to that. He
Right.
sooner or later
So,
get educated.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I took them.
Yeah.
Took them to camp with me.
Did you ever read them?
Yeah.
You started.
Yeah, I started. And then I got me a volume, I got me a set of those Shakespeare's. There was a little blue book,
Yeah.
maybe twice as long as this cigarette. And maybe another half the time as and
You started through that.
how the hell I'd run around in my back pocket just like I do at work now. I run my back pocket.
You carried it.
Sit down.
You read
How
a
you
great
don't
deal.
read Shakespeare? I'm reading Shakespeare. What's wrong with that?
Well, you read a
But,
great deal.
Yeah, but you see,
Jack
then the war
Oliver,
came
you read
along
too.
and
Great deal.
stopped it all.
No, did it really? I
Yeah.
mean, what? You don't do any? Do you do no reading now? You're not saying.
I don't.
that.
I don't hardly do anything. The only reading
you
I
know
do
the
now,
diff-
Mike, is
I've slowed down my reading a lot.
the newspaper.
Well, when I was here, you guys read a good bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, then we were reading books for
You were
one
you were-
purpose.
Well, yeah,
But-
but the purpose was enlargement in a way, then, right?
Right.
It was a specific cultural enlargement. It might be a damn good, hard-fast novel, or it might be economic study that will help you better understand the system or something, right? Or the history of the labor movement. Yet, I tend to think, not like, the only thing that enlarges you, really, to me, the biggest experience was just seeing another nationality, you know what I mean, like a Welsh man, the English man. that there is a truth to this. Now, I used to think of it much more narrowly. What the hell's the left up to? You know, I mean, all this kind of. Now I realize it's part of a worldwide phenomenon.
Right.
That you ought to be a broad person. You know?
That's right.
And we just sounded like we were doing something strange here, so we began to believe it about ourselves, actually.
Right. And then, you know, and this has got me to the point where I'm at today, because you know, you get yourself in what I call self-doubt.
Yeah, right.
You see, but the self-doubt imposes itself simply because you get to a point and you come to one of those branches and you say, where the hell am I going now?
Yeah.
Then you instinctively turn this way or that way, and you say, well, you know, I got 2 kids here, and I got and this is what I'd like to do, but this is what I'd better do. You know.
Well,
so it makes a difference, and it's tough.
There was another facet of it that you may want to comment, which was the phenomenon 20 years ago was very strange, and that the errors, serious errors, were made, in my opinion, just as I think you all think. So that while I'd be generally positive about mine, there was no question, whatever you thought of Chess Smotherman, that over ideological reasons and trying to do something right in a period before integration, like Joe Chavez, was not qualified. You follow me? Looking at the total picture, right? Yet, you know, the delivery of the votes to him out of an Anglo local here, you know what I mean, so forth, all over, right? Copper miners delivering. This was part of an effective sort of political, you know, communication. Yet, if you leave aside those, which I think, looking backwards, were errors but understandable ones, you follow me, that appeared to be like what you were trying to do to integrate, you know what I mean? It was our first move, so it was stupid, it was wrong, you know, in certain ways. But if you look at some of the other things that were going on, look, it's all to the earth.
Yeah.
You know, we were so they took so much damn guts just to show that thing at Carlsbad in the middle of that period. Do you know today I visited the University of Michigan campus? Do you know that in graduate school, hundreds and thousands of kids sit there and look at it? It's like a classic, you know what I mean? They just sit there. I mean, they think they point out this. I didn't go, but I mean, this young labor historian, now PhDs get with labor history, and they study mine mill, okay? And they got salt to the earth. You know, I mean, we didn't realize we were really part of something that would get worldwide, you know, recognition.
Well, because this is all part of it. This is what sometimes aggravates me about the situation that's going on today. You know, you take most blacks.
Yeah.
They're one of 2 ways, generally speaking.
Yeah.
You know, they're either nice, easygoing, you know, hey,
Okay, yeah.
or you know, they want to do this and
Drop the thumb.
you know, and then
brother.
you say, you know, you're looking at full militancy, you know.
Yeah.
But
Is that true even in Clarkson?
yeah.
You got
But
some
there would be militancy.
It would be
you see.
more, yeah.
You know, they don't understand, but they
No.
know that that's what they're supposed to
trying
do.
to be, yeah.
But then they get to a point where you're waiting. You know, and you sit there and you look at them and you feel like telling them, look, gee,
Yeah.
if it wasn't for guys like me,
Yeah.
you wouldn't be where you are today.
Yeah, I fought
No,
to
you
get
know.
this straightened out, and that's, yeah.
Or and you try to explain this to them,
You can't, no.
you can't break
No,
that
you
battle,
can't.
so you
can't
shut
fight
up.
it. Yeah, you got
I mean,
to.
what do you got? What are you going to do? You know, I'm going to
agree.
sit here and say, look, I met 30 of these guys down at the
They don't
church.
want to hear it. You know, they
No,
wiped
this is the
out
way
this.
this is done.
Yeah.
They wiped it out.
You know what? The worst thing to me is the young revolutionary movements, of which the blacks are just a little part, the student revolution, who really want to wipe out history. In other words, anybody over 30 didn't go through nothing. The old left didn't know nothing. The old labor movement don't know nothing. You follow me? And they're going to discover the wheel all by themselves, you see, how to make it, how to bargain. And really, you don't learn that way. We all came up a certain way. You learn from an older guy. You don't learn bargaining simple. It's a years. To me, I think back, my first bargaining meeting, I just get my mouth just watching guys. I mean, it's like an acting process. You know, it takes years to learn how to realize, you know, the carrot, the club. I mean, you can't even describe it in a book. You know, there's no way to teach you.
No way. You got to
And
be there.
for them to think they're going to go through it, you know, just because they're changing the world.
For example, when I was running for county chairman 2 years ago, you can imagine that there were a lot of people in this town. God, they don't want to tell him that.
Yeah.
Number one, he's a labor man. Number two, he's going to call the communist in his town and everything else, you know.
Yeah.
But the environment was such that there were political accommodations to be made, and some of them couldn't accommodate each other, but they could accommodate with me on a strict one-on-one basis. So then the young people came down. They were going to think, oh,
Where were they from? Who were these?
Colleges.
They're a college here, this branch
College
college?
here,
Okay.
university, Las
Okay.
Cruces, you know.
Yeah. Into this county. They came
They
home.
came
for
in. They
vacation.
came home.
Yeah.
And some of them were
Yeah.
already here, you know.
Now, what did they
you know.
regard you as? An old-time think from the late movement, or as a progressive? Which
Well, they weren't sure.
Oh, yeah.
All they knew at that
Yeah.
point was, my God, they wanted to turn this thing upside down. So I told them I wanted them to help, you know. Until finally they came up to the house and they started making outlandish demands, you know. Very much. So I want you in the Democrat Party. I welcome young people. I said, we're not going to burn down the Democratic House in the middle of the winter.
Yeah.
That's what you guys are trying to do. So when I got through talking, they said, would you come to a meeting with us? Anytime. Tonight? Sure. In an hour?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So in about an hour, they called me in. Come on up to the Ramada. So I went up to the Ramada, you know, and there they were, 30 or 40. Beard
Real
out of
hippie.
here, you know. Yosti was there, smart, you know. So I said, what do you want to talk about? I don't want to talk about this one.
Now, this is on the election for the county Democratic Party.
A small thing. It's, you know,
Yeah.
they got precincts in Albuquerque that are bigger than the entire county of
Well, what is your county here in population?
45 to 50,000.
Okay.
Probably closer to 50.
That's Carlsbad, Artesia, Loving is
Yeah,
the
the
main
whole county,
population
right.
center.
So, had a black there, you know. I just got out of Vietnam, and a company phone hired me, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, I don't understand that. I said, I thought that problem was over with, you know. You just don't get a job because you happen to be black. I said, where have you been? Well, he told me, and I said, what's your name? He told me. And I looked at him, I said, you got a problem. I already heard about this guy, you know, he had a problem. He's one of these, I'm one of these completely militant, you know.
He was bearded, everything?
Oh, everything, you know, and the companies wouldn't buy it. So I got him, I said, now you come talk to me tomorrow. And I said, I'll see if I can't do something else. And there was a guy sitting with a full beard down here. Choppers, hair on. So I've been out to PCA 3 times. I said, I don't care if you go out there 50 more times. Thomas is not going to hire you. Why not? I said, because of everything you got on. I said, now you want to write the work? You work. He wants the right not to hire you because you're liable to get that thing caught in a chain or you're liable to get this caught in something else. That's his business. You really want a job? Shave it down to here, smooth it out. And I said, I think the guy will hire you. We went through all this kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And they're taking me on. Yosti says, I got one question. This is the educated one. He talks for about 5 minutes. Question these guys.
These were not working class kids. They were essentially middle class kids, except for the black.
Yeah, except for the
Okay.
blacks
Yeah.
and the Chicanos. And this one Chicano came from up north. So he's just smart. He poses all these questions to me. Finally, you know, I've either got to give this guy the business now, or I'm going to be nice and be quiet. I said, I want to tell you something, John. I said, I'm not too well educated. Didn't get beyond high school and had a tough time getting through that. I worked on all these things. I don't have too much education. So when you start talking that way to me, I want you to understand, I can give you one answer. I can talk for 5 minutes. And at the end of 5 minutes, you will not have understood my answer. Because I don't understand your question. Now, if you're going to call me full of baloney, that's fine. I don't want to talk to you anymore. You got a question? Lay it on pan, man. Put it down. He said, well, you know my question. I said, okay, essentially it boils down to this. Well, you know, 4 or 5 words. Is that what you want to know? I said, the answer is no. He said, well, that's direct. I said, that's the way I believe in girl. But anyway, came Saturday morning. Election
They had to
Saturday
make
night.
up their mind what to do.
They were up the house saying, well, we want this position and we want this position. I said,
This was like a youth caucus or what?
Yeah,
Religious?
yeah, that's it.
But there were young revolutionaries in there.
Right.
Yeah.
I said, come on. So I want to win this thing pretty
Yeah.
bad. For a number of reasons I haven't explained to you. You don't need to know anyway. They date back. So I said, I'm going to tell you something.
I take back all right.
I said, I don't need you. Huh? I said, I don't need you. Now, the only other place you've got to go is with Adair gossip. And believe me, fellas, if you go with Adair gossip against me, you're all a bunch of phonies. Oh, no, Ken, we're going to stay with you. I said, then what the hell are you arguing about? You're going to do what I tell you? I said, I'm doing more for you than anybody has ever done before. And I said, and you haven't showed me anything yet, except that you're interested and that you happen to be here and you will be here tonight. I don't know where the hell you'll be next month.
Yeah.
But I said, I've got to stay here and carry this
Right,
battle on.
right.
So I said, suit yourself.
So then they delivered
They walked
for
off
you.
in my living room and they came back and said, "Where were you going?" I went up. Okay, fellas. But
Now, where does
you
that
know,
election take place, actually? In a big convention
Yeah,
caucus
it's
or
in the
something?
caucus. You know.
So they showed up and
They
voted?
showed up and they supported. And,
Were they actually decisive, or were they on?
Oh yeah,
You needed every little
Adair
click.
Gossett called me and said, Rick, he said, you didn't let the young people. I said, that's right. He said, well, he said, I want you to know I'm going to vote for you tonight. I said, fine, Adair.
Oh, so they called the fight
You
off.
know, call the fight off, see. Oh, and of course that's what I was aiming at.
Yeah.
But
What have you done with that office?
these kids finally did. These kids disappeared.
What have you done with it? They always do. I mean, in a way,
They
students
disappeared.
are trying to inspire.
Well, what I did with the office was that was not a lot because there was not a lot to do. In terms of registration.
Got out the biggest vote that's ever been gotten.
Yeah, well, we have that
If they do
singular
vote
honor,
Republican.
even if they voted Republican.
really brought them out to vote the wrong way, huh?
Percentage-wise, we got out the best vote ever gotten out in terms of population. We were able to collect money, but I could walk up to a guy who normally would have given a Democratic Party $100 or $200.
A merchant.
Yeah, a merchant, a businessman, a professional person, who normally would have given that amount of money. To me, it's all I can give you. I said, it's 25. You know, well, fine. I'm going to spit on it, 25 is 25. But in the final analysis...
But you were carrying the burden of the McGovern candidacy,
Right.
too, right?
Right. You see, because they...
Because while you could support them with a good heart and everything else, you weren't able to carry your troops with you.
couldn't carry the troops. And then the thing that I wanted to do was to avert a split in the community in terms of the Democratic Party, saying, this is the part of the Democratic Party for Nixon, and this is the McGovern headquarters. We're showing everybody how we can stand by ourselves, and then I have the senator over here and then by himself, and the governor. So I called them all in. I said, look, fellas, this is a Democratic Party. It's not. We're going to work all under the same rate.
Yeah.
If that's not suitable, open up your own offices. There will be no Democratic headquarters. None. Oh, we can't do that. I said, no, you can't do it. I'm being true, Ken, and I'm going to do it. So they agreed. We operated. But in terms of accomplishment, I think probably what I got out of it was a lot of personal gratification. That's what these guys.
And the thing I
But in terms of-
was meaning before, it was because of the early humiliations too. I mean,
It's a personal thing, but also, Mike.
the many years in which the defeats at even trying to get
that
minor
was a personal thing,
representation.
right.
Yeah.
Well, that was a personal attitude, but also an attitude in terms of saying, well, labor's now got big enough in this community where it can happen. Now I have to make it work happen. In terms of I make it happen, this is a plus for the labor side if I don't, screw the whole thing up. And we did that, but the big political education
was what we did in 1964. We had the amalgamated local, we had the newspaper.